I'm the Straw Hat Farmer. Welcome to Grow Dinner Aquaponics. I'm glad you could join us today because what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about how to hold heat inside your greenhouse through the winter. There's a couple of key things you really need to work on if you want to try to keep crops growing all year long in a greenhouse without a heater system inside your house. Now, like these bell peppers here, we're growing these pretty much all winter inside of our house here. We are located in Zone 7, which is in North Carolina. We do have some pretty cold nights. They'll get down to single digits or teens. We may lose our blooms at that point, but who knows? Sometimes we'll be able to coast right through the winter and be able to keep a good summer crop production going. Now, here we are on December the 23rd, and we still have nice, beautiful strawberries blooming up here and producing berries. As you can see, they have a good berry production going on here. And the key to that is holding good warm heat inside your greenhouse. Okay, the first thing I want to talk to you, if you want to hold these squash blooms like this throughout the winter and in late December and early January like we are here at Grow Dinner Aquaponics, we've got a couple of little 2-inch squash and a little inch squash growing here. Now this plant right here will not sustain in the PVC pipe. It will have to be moved to a flood and drain bed later on. We just like to start lots of our plants in this system and then move it out. But one of the ways to secure this system through the winter is to take a look at your poly. Okay, if you live in a really cold environment, you really want to look at doubling your poly. Your poly covering, by having a double layer, could save you up to about 30 to 40% of your heat. So if you live in a really cold environment, you might want to consider that. Now this poly here, we do remove in the summertime, all of our walls. So we only put it up for the winter. It is a single layer. You come inside your greenhouse and you want to have a short sleeve shirt, even preferably shorts on also. Then come in your house, close up all your vents, turn off your fans on a good breezy day, and feel around the walls for cool air. Any cracks that's allowing cool air to blow inside your greenhouse is going to drop the temperatures drastically on cold nights. And that is something where it's the most important, is those breezy, windy nights, because wind chill factors are going to drop the temperatures even much faster. Now, this right here, in my opinion, is one of the big things for keeping your greenhouse warm. These are black barrels, and they're full of water. We collect up our rainwater and fill these things up for the winter. You don't want to wait until it's freezing cold to bring a barrel in, because it's really hard to get it warm. But if you'll start in early fall and get your barrel kind of warming as the weather starts to drop, every day when the sun shines, it comes through our roof and it warms these barrels. And basically what that can do is that can help build up some heat. Because you have to remember, a really good greenhouse should be able to maintain about a double the heat of what's outside. So on a partly sunny day, if it's 45 outside, you should be around 90 inside. Then of course at that point your fans and vents will come on to remove some of the air. So that gives these barrels a really good opportunity to heat up. When these barrels of water heat up and the sun goes down that night, then these barrels really start to put off some heat. Now during the day they don't feel that warm, but if you walk out here on a 20-degree night and lay your hand against them, they're going to feel extremely warm to you. This is an IBC tank that's been painted black. It is also full of water, but it's positioned on the north side of the greenhouse, and when the sun comes through, it shines on the entire top, down one side, and then of course in the mornings it gets the east sun across here. So it really does get nice and warm, and it's a larger volume of water. It actually heats a lot better than a couple of barrels do. Now the problem with these water barrels is, and the water tanks, is if you have several cloudy days. That's when they really become a little bit of an issue, because you don't have your reheat time the next day to reheat your barrels. But overall average, they work really well. One thing about these water barrels is they really come in good for starters too. You can set your black trays on here at night. You don't want to leave them on during the day. They'll get too hot and kill your plants. Plus you'll kill the heat getting to your water barrel. Alright, one of the other things you can do to really help with this is come in here and really cut your shade leaves back. Okay? That way that sunlight can come in here and shine on your stone or your grow media of whatever type you have. And that'll really help warm your water inside your tank and system and really help you. So if you'll cut all these big shade leaves back, they're really not doing you a lot of good in the winter. Especially plants like eggplants and squash, even cabbage, some of your winter plants. If you'll cut all these outside shade leaves, then you can start planting some of your fall crops. You can see that we've cut ours back now, and that'll make room for us to start sliding our broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and stuff in here. So, okay, another thing is going to be is on your floor. Okay, what can you do with your floor to hold good heat? Well, see, I prefer gravel, and one is because of the moisture, it dries up. Now, what I have in here is about 10 inches of gravel, maybe 12 inches. So during the day, the sun shines on my gravel and warms this gravel up really nicely. Then, of course, this warm stone will release heat throughout the night. Another thing you can do is add mulch to your floor. Instead of using a gravel or stone, you can actually put down mulch. Mulch, as it decomposes, will actually create its own heat. And if I lived in a much colder environment than North Carolina, I would definitely consider putting down mulch because you'll get more heat from the decomposing mulch than you will from stone. But also there's some issues with the mulch, kind of stays a little mushy in my area, so the stone works really well for me. But if I was a little colder environment, I would definitely go with mulch. Okay, we've done some changes since the last time you were here. This is our duckweed bed. Now this is one thing you really want to take a look at. If you're growing duckweed and the system is tied into your aquaponics system, then you don't want to lose a lot of heat. Now what I've done here is, since the last time you were here, we used to drain our settlement tanks into here. We have now decided to tie our bed completely into our system so the water flows through our system year round. Okay, we have not sustained a good supply of duckweed with this new variety we're growing yet. We just ordered this not long ago, and we're actually doing some testing of the giant duckweed. But until you get a good bed of duckweed, one thing you do not want is an open water source. That will evaporate a lot of heat throughout the night. So what we're doing here is we have actually decided to insulate our duckweed bed with some styrofoam. Now I'm sure that you're actually looking at the hose here wondering why we've got duckweed in here. Try to do lots of testing and research, and we've actually counted each petal of duckweed in its progress, and we monitor each day the candle lights inside of our greenhouse so that we can compare the two varieties of duckweed of which grows the faster and which will actually produce the most poundage on average. Now I know lots of you are going to ask me how I tied this into my system, so let me just go ahead and tell you how that works. And this is our tray of our existing duckweed we started out with. We didn't want to lose our tray that we started with, so we've kind of got it quarantined in a different place. Now basically, duckweed, how does it work? How are we keeping this duckweed from getting down inside of our system? It's real simple. It works just like your bell siphon does. We have some holes in the bottom so that the water can come up and go through the pipe. Duckweed floats on top, so the water comes to the bottom of the pipe and comes up inside and then goes down the hole. So that way you have a good clear flow of water. Even in the wintertime, we need to keep that air flowing inside the greenhouse. So if you're letting all this heat, steam out of here, you'll start to create some fungus and molds without some fan movement. Now, if you don't want to, say, put styrofoam over it, you're still using a lot, make you a styrofoam cover just to cover it at night. Or there's some options of putting some slider plexiglass in here. You even have some options of putting a piece of clear plastic. They make some that they sell in a store that's made for sliding glass doors. You can heat it with a hair dryer. We did have some of that in here, but we need to count our samples here a couple of days ago, so we took it down. But that is a good method to get duckweed started. You put that clear plastic up, heat it with a hair dryer, just leave it alone, let your heat build in there until your duckweed gets started. We started a couple of weeks ago with a handful. We now have a 3 by 3 area completely covered, and we need to remove one sheet of styrofoam and let it keep expanding. Okay folks, this is where we're going to get into the electrical. Before we get into the electrical, I need you to read this because Grow Dinner Aquaponics and the Straw Hat Farmer is in no way, shape, or form liable for any electrical shocks, fires, or anything. I am not an electrician, and I am not going to show you how to wire this up. I will tell you what models I use, I will tell you exactly the model number, and I will tell you up front, this should not be used for aquaponics, it should not be used in heat tanks. Never try this at home, and please read the warnings right here. If you do not agree, turn back now, close the video. thermostat is a 110. I did tie it to a ground fault unit. It is wrapped inside a conduit. I will give you the model numbers at the end of the video. The thermostat actually has a probe that drops into the water, and this probe makes it so you can set the temperature. It's a very easy 3-button thermostat so that you can easily set the desired temperature of when you want it to come on, when you want it to go off, and things of that nature. Now, the kind of heaters I'm using with this thermostat are the kind you should not use at home, because it clearly says on the warning right here, warning, do not use this unit unattended. So that means it's not safe for fish tanks or any other thing, and it's not made for fish tanks. But this is what I use here at Grow Dinner Aquaponics. This is called a tank heater. It's referred to as a bucket heater. It can be purchased online about anywhere. There again, I'll be more than glad to give you the model number. It's a 1,000-watt heater. Ours is not on right now, as you can see. It's way too warm in here in December. But this is what we use to heat our tanks. It's a plastic safe so that the heating element doesn't touch our tanks. Now, one thing I have found about this heater is if you're going to keep your tanks really cool, and I mean really cool, like down in the low 60s or mid 60s, you're going to need to wrap this heater with a wire cage. And the reason for that, when the water gets down to 60s, the fish start looking for heat. And they crowd up under here and they bump this heater and they burn themselves. And then once the fish is burned on this heater, at that point, it starts to get some bacteria and some infections, and of course, you don't want that inside your system. I myself, I do not cage this in these particular tanks because I maintain these tanks at 72 degrees year-round. They never drop below 72 degrees. So I don't run a cage on it, but I do have some other tanks in some different areas and locations that I have a wire cage that I wrap around here, and that keeps the fish from touching it because I only keep those heaters around 65 degrees. Then I just drop this in here. Now that's not safe for fish tanks. It clearly says do not leave unattended. But that's how we heat our tanks here at Grow Dinner Aquaponics. Very important. On really, really freezing cold nights, you have the option of laying a piece of styrofoam or something over your tanks. You just remember something. If you seal these tanks up too tight, you'll create enough gas inside of this tank, if you're not careful, that it will actually suffocate your fish. You need to really keep that in mind when you start covering your tanks. You do not want to get taken over far beyond the point that you're actually suffocating your fish. They're still releasing a gas. And even though you have all this water flowing back into your system, be really careful during the day when you forget to uncover this and you walk away and your greenhouse starts getting up to 75 or 80 degrees and your water starts getting 75 or 80. You don't want to suffocate your fish. So I always keep a couple notches cut in my styrofoam. It never seals tight. That way some fresh oxygen can get in all the time and the gases can escape. You're pushing in water, but you need to make sure, and oxygen, but you need to make sure your gases can escape. So be careful, cover your tanks, but it will help you on freezing cold nights. I want to thank you for joining me here at Grow Dinner Aquaponics. Be sure to check us out on the web under growdinner.aquaponics.com. You can find us on Facebook under Grow Dinner Aquaponics. We also have a monthly newsletter we send out every month that helps give some good aquaponics tips. And if you want to keep these beautiful strawberries growing here all winter, keep this greenhouse nice and warm. That is absolutely delicious. There's no better feeling than picking strawberries in the middle of the winter in your Aquaponics greenhouse. Remember, keep the world organic. It'll be a greener place to live. And thanks for joining us, Straw Hat Farmer at Grow Dinner Aquaponics. And I want to thank my daughter for helping me with this video.